What if the path to your true calling isn't a straight line, but a winding journey across countries, cultures, and careers? For Rahel Podobsky, embracing her Swiss-Filipino heritage became the key to unlocking her purpose as she navigated from being a court interpreter in Zurich to founding BANTAYnet, an initiative that's revolutionizing digital literacy education in the Philippines. Hello and welcome to Season 10 of the BANTAYnet Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs to inspire and guide you on your own entrepreneurial journey. This episode is brought to you by Redbox Studio. Today, we're sitting down with a remarkable woman whose story embodies the power of embracing life's nonlinear paths. Through her diverse experiences spanning multiple countries and careers, Rahel has transformed her journey into a powerful mission. Now based in Bohol, Philippines, she is using her voice and knowledge to make a lasting difference in her community through digital education and online safety awareness. Join us as we explore her story of resilience, reinvention, and finding purpose in the most unexpected of places. Hello, Rahel. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Hi, Krista. I am so thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Rahel, when I was looking at your profile, I was just thinking to myself, you have done so many different things in your life. You were a podcast editor at some point in your life. You were a court interpreter. And not also even, and not even in the place where you are now, which is the Philippines, but that was in Zurich, right?
Yes.
And you also studied for your PhD. You're a PhD candidate.
Yes.
You did so many things. So, Rahel, I know you're based in Bohol, Central Visayas, Philippines.
Yes.
But tell us, how do you get from all that to coming back to the Philippines and doing what you do now? And of course, in that process, tell us a little bit about what are you doing now?
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for looking at my profile and finding my whole kind of background and backstory interesting and not being like, what is she doing? She has been everywhere. What's this woman doing? I appreciate that because it used to be something that really worried me for a long time growing up, because we are taught that, you go to school, you study this, you get this job and kind of work in that career. And one of the things that bothered me and really used to freak me out a lot over time was the fact that my journey wasn't linear. And I had some people in my life, many women, telling me that, don't worry, not everyone's life is linear, but it's very difficult to be okay with that and come to peace with it when you look around you and everyone else's life is linear. I do now see it as a superpower because having done all those different things allow me to do what I'm meant to do now, which I'll get to in a while. As to answering your question, how did I even do all those things and how did I get to where I am now? So first of all, the countries, Switzerland, Philippines, it's not actually such a big jump if you know that I am Swiss and Filipino. So my dad is from Switzerland and my mom is from the Philippines. They met in Switzerland when my mom was a nurse in the 70s, one of the first, one of the first Asian or Filipinos to actually go to Switzerland. So that actually was very helpful to me to have my formative years in Switzerland. So it just gave me a good value system in terms of just, equality. Whilst Switzerland is seen as somewhere ultra rich and it's a very wealthy country, which it is, what I do appreciate about it is the school system. It's public school, only the ultra rich do go to private schools. And so I just feel like, for me anyway, the experience was it's a level playing field. So it doesn't matter, whether your parents are working class or whatever, everyone pretty much plays with each other and does the same things. That really helped me coming to the Philippines, which is a stark contrast, which is very classist. And it is something mind-boggling a lot of the time because when people see Switzerland as such a rich country, which, not everyone is wealthy there either. But to the Philippines, everyone just thinks that, Philippines is associated with extreme poverty, which sadly is a big part. But it's not the only part. Philippines, I always describe as a country of huge contradictions. And that is mostly seen in terms of the very poor like the below poverty line population, and the ultra rich here. So, I mean, yes, there is a middle class, there is an in between, but just even between the middle class and the economically disadvantaged.
There is a stark, a stark contrast, right?
Very stark contrast, yeah. Growing up in Switzerland, then going to an international school here when I was 10 in Cebu, it was just so eye-opening. Like the worlds were very different, you know. And I feel like I always maintained those roots because I did grow up in the Swiss Alps as well. I know that's like a random thing. I grew up in Davos, and so I was outdoors a lot. I climbed like all the trees I could. It was just very much outdoors. And it's like such a stark contrast when you come here to the Philippines, where kids are told not to go outside, climb, or do anything because you'll get hurt and you'll fall. I've grown up with these big differences. And when you then go and look at my like educational journey, even people who know me, they might think that I didn't have a plan or didn't know what I was doing, which for a huge part is true. I didn't know what I was doing. But I was always so scared that people will see, like, look at what I'm doing and just think that I'm spoiled, that, you know, I try something, then I failed and I didn't make it because I tried law school at one point. Before that, I was going to be an interpreter because I know languages. And for many reasons, these things didn't work out. Like, I tried, like, I ended up with insomnia from law school because, like, I just couldn't think of anything else outside it. It just wasn't for me. So now I started seeing that while it is seen in our society, and I mean, this is the Swiss, you know, European and Asian very much as well, you know, starting something and not finishing is a failure. I see now that if you have tried, you have also found out that it's not for you. It's very valuable as well. And I do understand I come from a place of privilege to actually get to try these things and fail without, you know, huge consequences. Like, I'm not going to end up on the street. If you think about it, we're made to choose depending what country you are in. At 16, 18, you're supposed to know already what you're going to be for the rest of your life. And just to highlight how crazy that is, because I graduated high school in 2003, social media did not exist. And I now work in something, you know, social media. And with social media, like, that's my world. And so, you know, it's silly, I find, to punish yourself or anyone else for, like, you know, not being amazing or like successful immediately at the first thing they try. Looking back now, like, a bigger show of strength would have been for me to see that this isn't right for me and just accept that and move on. Instead, I wasted 2.5 years in a degree that was really destroying me and giving myself a hard time about it, you know? So I have learned to see that, you know, all these trajectories ended up being part of my journey. I can now own it. Whereas before I would have maybe not told people about the fact that, you know, I failed at English as my first language when I wanted to be an interpreter. I didn't tell people that for a long time because I figured, oh my God, what are people going to say? You know, English is my best language. And if I failed English, then no one's going to think I'm credible ever. I'm multilingual, and I've been told by the professor who failed me, saying that, you know, that's unfortunately the downside of many people who do grow up bilingual or multilingual. They'll be fluent in many, but they won't have one that's a real native speaker language. And over the years...
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But because for a while I had an identity crisis, right? I'm like, if I don't speak English, what do I speak? Who am I? And I'm so grateful, Mrs. Rickett was really kind to me because I had such an existential crisis at the time. Because for years, my high school, I was trying to be an interpreter. I see now that would not have been the field for me, you know, like, because I only learned later that I wouldn't have been allowed to have opinions because that's not what an interpreter does. You literally just interpret
whatever that's being said.
Yeah, and I realized only later on I was just doing that because I was like, I speak languages, I'll do that. You know, what did I know in high school? And I'm looking back and I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many opinions. That would not be a career for me.
Which actually is good in what you're doing right now because that's where your opinion counts.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But it took me a while to get here. And also to actually know how to form an opinion. When it didn't work out with law school, I was wondering, you know, what do I do? What's next? I invested so much time and I already, started like, I can't quit now. What are people going to think? And I don't know, no one in my family was actually giving me such a hard time. To be fair, I was in Switzerland, and the society there at the time was very much still like, when someone would drop out, it was like, oh, she dropped out, So there is that also.
So there was a lot of pressure back then when you were in Switzerland.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it did not help with my mental health. I used to be ashamed about that and just be like, people are going to say like I wasn't cut out for it and stuff like that. But right now I'm just like, yeah, I wasn't. And that's okay.
Now you can own it. Now you can own it, right?
Mm-hmm. Because I now understand that, the person also needs to be suited to the job. This one I learned really the hard way. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Oh, I like that. Yes, I like that too. Because I think a lot of people feel that they always should, right?
Yeah.
They should. Yeah. Like you should do it.
Having options. People don't realize it's so easy that when you're in these situations to just feel like there's nothing else. Oh, and I was at the point like really like having like meltdowns thinking like, how is this the seventh time or whatever, that I'm like, what do I do with my life? Like, what's wrong with me? And it's actually, there's a North Star. I just didn't see it. So my North Star, I want to do something that helps people. I want to actually make an impact. I'm one of those people who wants to make a difference. And I just didn't know how to articulate that. So everything I've been doing was just trying to sort of get towards making an impact, because I'm like, I know stuff. I know I can help somehow. I've just been trying to figure out how to get there. And so after law school, when, I mean, it was quite a crisis. It's quite a low point because, it's one of those things, things that shouldn't really matter so much. But I did graduate valedictorian of my high school. And it's one of those things to then be like, failure upon failure. Like I didn't make it into the interpreting school despite having done so many courses. And I was privileged enough to go to Spain for a few summers to, like really get that going. So get my Spanish language up, German and English, so I could get into this school. And all of that didn't work out. And then I dropped out of law school. And it's just like, did I peak in high school? Anyway, I realized that I completely abandoned myself in terms of what does Rahel enjoy? Why did I thrive? When I went to Switzerland, it just like, I felt like I had to hit on that adult switch. I was kind of intimidated by my Swiss friends and, peers at my university, because they're all so serious. They had jobs, they were so responsible, paying rent, being on their own. Oh, I was always like, I have to study. I had friends telling me like, Rahel, you need to party or just like lighten up a bit and, have weekends. And I'm like, no, then I'll be in the exam and then I'll fail and then I'll be like, I should have studied more. So it's an example of how not to do things. So that's how I learned that.
And how did that realization made you come to a point where you know that you want to make an impact, you want to help other people, but it wasn't the right path for you going from going to law school? It wasn't the right path. But how did you eventually come back to the Philippines and do something?
Wish it was a very short and simple answer, but no, Krista, no. It was me doing several more degrees.
Okay.
And actually finishing them, some of them. But then that friend who was also Filipina, Melissa, she had studied in London, and she was telling me that, you're in the wrong place. Try a degree in the UK. It's a very different setup. It's more chill, it's fun. So I chose European studies with Spanish because I realized I missed languages. And so off I went to London. I'm so really lucky that my dad still supported this and wasn't like, what, another degree? One important side note is the reason I was desperate to get a university degree wasn't actually the reason most people would go to university and get a degree. And I only realized that later. But, most people go to a university to get a degree so that they can then I have a degree in this and I can get a job in that. I wanted to have knowledge. because I always admired older people. Sometimes you would get like an old student in university who was like 35 or 28, but like everyone would be like, oh my God, they're so old. I'm 40 now, so like I see how funny that is. But I used to, because they would ask questions where I'm like, how do they think of that? My brain can't even make that question. So I just wanted to have knowledge, and I wanted to know how to think. There are two types of people who go to university. Some people, because they just need a degree and better chances at a job. And they don't think that actually what comes with that isn't just, transferable skills, but like really teaching you how to see the world and have your own opinions. I'm the youngest of three, and everyone around me has very strong opinions. I didn't know how to have my own. So the fact that I can actually, stand up in front of people now and say, I believe this, this, and this, and I know why I believe that, like it's an informed decision and I can stand by that, is huge for me. And I have that thanks to my experience at Royal Holloway, University of London. I did finish my bachelor's degree there in European studies, where I was able to do, international relations, management, history, Spanish. Like it was just the better place for me to just kind of have a broad spectrum of things, very interdisciplinary.
Do you enjoy it? Much more than law. Much more than law.
Much more. Also, I actually got to have a university experience, because there it's all about campuses, living on campus. You meet people from different places. I actually, another side note, I did meet my husband on the very first day. He's my husband now. But
he was your boyfriend then?
He became my boyfriend after a few months, yes.
So there was a plus point, right? Plus point in going to London.
So many. And I got to experience another world. And after that degree, I decided, so many people were telling me to get a master's degree, and it was actually quite irritating to me, because I'm like, it's easy for you guys to say, I've been in higher education for forever now. I want to get on with it. But looking at what jobs I could do with my bachelor's, I don't know, there was just nothing there that I'm like, this is it for me. So I did find this master's degree, which was at the time, it was called New Political Communication. And the new is actually just digital, because it was basically social media and politics. That's actually what the degree is. It was just new at the time, because I think it was 2011, 12. And I think President Obama's campaign was the first one to be in social media, I think 2008. So it was new then.
And that is how he won.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Using social media.
Exactly. And within a few years, that was interesting enough. Like that field had grown, so much that it warranted its own field of study in academia. So that's actually where I found my world. And I surprised myself, because I didn't see myself as techie, as media. I don't even like social media for the most part. But
it's irony, right? You're not working in it.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
It's so funny. I just felt like, no, this is going to make a difference. This isn't going away. This is going to stay relevant. And when I just looked at the curriculum and the degree itself, just learning about it, it really motivated me so much. When I graduated, we went back to Switzerland with my boyfriend. He was also a fresh graduate with no work experience, and he wasn't getting any work in Switzerland. Also, it didn't help that he isn't Swiss. He was getting very depressed. So we went to the Isle of Man, which is where he lived before going to university. I got very depressed there, working for a job that, whilst I kept saying, I'm lucky, that I have a job. But I also found that if you are constantly looking so hard for things to be grateful for, you are ignoring the fact that something isn't okay and you should change that. And I felt guilty not being happy, because I should be grateful, right? Many fresh graduates don't have employment. They created this job for me. They saw the value in me. But I was dying inside, and the depression was very, very real. It was very bad. I couldn't get up. That is basically the way I then got myself into the PhD program, which, again, I learned a lot, but also wasn't the right fit. So long story short, I was just kind of forced to leave the PhD, because it wasn't a healthy environment for me. Let's just put it that way. I loved what I was doing, but everything around it just didn't work out. And that's when I realized I should do something that gives back. I was still in the UK at that time, but it was a realization with just like, I'm a very capable, well-educated person. I have a lot of knowledge. Surely there's something I can give back. Surely there's something people can learn and benefit from and take away from what I do. And so when I was on holiday here in the Philippines, I think 2018, late 2018, I firsthand got to observe just how much knowledge is lacking. Just if you look around in society, you know, entire families in a restaurant are just on their screens individually. No one talks to each other. Kids are watching things, consuming mindlessly, you know, brain rot generation, all that stuff. Even governments are just chatting to each other on Facebook Messenger with, you know, private data of citizens. And I was just like, oh, I can actually make a difference here and contribute. And that's the roundabout way with how I then ended up in the pandemic, starting BANTAYnet on Facebook, I was thinking, how can I get a lot of information out for free to many people? And because in the Philippines, everyone is on Facebook.
And everyone uses Messenger.
Yeah, absolutely.
I realized that. I did not realize how prevalent it was until someone told me that, like, you know, just use Messenger. I'm thinking like in Malaysia where I'm from, I think we hardly use that. We do use Facebook, but we use a lot of WhatsApp.
Well, here it's Viber or Messenger.
Yeah. So I realized that happened a lot in the Philippines.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Everything, even businesses. And that's why I think it's quite important also that I am actually here. See, it was quite difficult trying to run BANTAYnet from abroad when I'm not actually here, like immersed and experiencing the digital experience that people have here as well, right? A lot of the problems with the content that is made or that is existing about, you know, online safety, you know, all MIL, it's a lot of it is created abroad, mostly American based, if I'm not mistaken. And that's kind of what gets here. But a lot of it isn't taking into account these kinds of things that you just mentioned, you know, how everything is on Messenger. So, you know, like be wary of a company that gets in touch with you with like a Gmail address or through Messenger, because it's probably a scam. Well, most companies here don't have like a at so-and-so, you know, email address. They will use Gmail because it's free. A lot of companies do business and do their offers and everything, payments through Messenger. To then give out that advice would be very bad because a lot of legit places would suffer as well. And yeah, so I think it is quite important for me to actually be here. And that is one of the reasons why during the pandemic, my husband and I decided to actually relocate here. And I'm lucky that I get to live with my parents who have retired here in the meantime.
Tell us, what does BANTAYnet do? I know we kind of hinted a little bit about it, but yes. What does it do? Yeah.
Yes. So first, let me start with the name BANTAYnet. So Bantay, I looked it up and it's very fortunate, in all Filipino languages means the same thing or has a meaning. And it means, it's a really good word because first and foremost, it means, you know, watch out, warning. But it can also be used as be on guard. A person who is a guard or a watch person is like a bantay. Like we have bantay dagat. Bantay dagats are like more on the local level, people who just kind of patrol and look out. So bantay, you know, a lot of people call their dogs bantay.
Like security, right? Like guard.
Yeah. So bantay, it's just this when people, you know, caution each other, but also it's a joke about, you know, like Filipino women when they say to their husband, like bantay, you know, it's like, it's also a joke. It's like, watch out. So it's just a very nuanced and very well-known word. And I chose it on purpose because I wanted Filipinos to be able to recognize that this is for them. You know, this is for you. What BANTAYnet first and foremost does is I create educational content about online safety and digital literacy that is bite-sized and very simplified. In a very poetic way, I actually did become an interpreter. Because I realized that I have the gift of explaining very complex things in simple ways. Because if you've been to some conferences that are very specialized, you'll have specialists presenting their research, but not all of them are very gifted in explaining this to laymen, to people who aren't
who haven't studied, right? Who haven't studied to that level.
Dealt with that topic the whole life.
Or that level. Because sometimes the language can be quite complex as well to describe complex matters.
Exactly. So people like using jargon. And I think it's also really refreshing for me because it's like the polar opposite of what I had to do in academia. There you're always finding for words and thesaurus, synonyms to sound smarter. Like, how can I say this in a possibly more pretentious way? I'm not saying that all of it is pretentious, but let's face it, a lot of academic articles, if, you just boiled it down to what's the message, it could be said in very short and simple ways. The more and more when I'm creating content for BANTAYnet, it's like, how can it be simpler? How can it be simpler? But I found that a lot of the content out there is created with the assumption that people have a base knowledge of the topic. Even with tech, when they develop tech, the way they explain it to people, there's always this base assumption that the person already knows something about it. That's just not true. This is my reminder all the time. I chose Facebook, and that's where I do giveaways, and that's how we got people in immediately. We got a lot of followers, but it has slowed down since then. But at the beginning, giveaways was the real way to do it, because I could tell people BANTAYnet exists this way, and I can coerce people into engaging with our content, so that I'm kind of forcing them to learn so they'll be safe. And hopefully they do. That was the main strategy. Just put static, simple posts, with fun graphics, thank God for Canva. That's kind of how we taught people about password security, that you could use password managers. But, my work isn't done because only a small section has seen that. So I need to keep going out there and reinventing how I can say this. So since then, it's all about reels now, right? It's all about videos. So that's why I need interns to help me make all this content into videos as well. But the idea of BANTAYnet really was people could be scrolling on their phone and then they can casually learn in a bite-sized way, something very small. It's didn't know that. And then, it won't feel like school. I'm about to release an online course about scam protection, because the more I talk to people, the number one concern they have here really is scams. I know it's bad all over Asia, but I don't know how bad it is in Malaysia. But Philippines always, I guess, on top
it's bad. It's bad in Malaysia. I mean, every single day you will get a news report about some senior citizen getting scammed out of not even hundreds of thousands, but it's in the million. It's that much of money that they are probably scammed out of their life savings. So that's really tragic.
Yeah.
What is it like in the Philippines? What kind of scams are common?
So I think the problem in the Philippines is that digital literacy is low. Digital media literacy is low, but also poverty is rampant. And it's the perfect match, right? Because if we already have people in the US, in UK, Australia, those people are getting scammed as well. By the thousands as well, by the millions. If people there are getting scammed, how much more for countries like ours, right? It's the love scams, romance scams. They're huge. People just randomly getting in touch saying, hey, gorgeous, or, this. And then they build a friendship, a trust relationship. And, next thing you know, it's oh, I have this emergency, please send me some money. So those scams are really bad. A scam that horribly rocked Bohol, the island where I live, right before I came here, I think 2021, so this was also mid-pandemic, was a pyramid scheme known as REPA. And, Krista, the amount of people who got caught up in it. And again, it was the perfect storm, right? It's the pandemic. Most people don't have a job. And you know how pyramid schemes work, right? The first investments have a payout, and then it grew, and then everyone is saying, oh my God, this works, invest in this, I already got back. And it really it might doubled, tripled, whatever. And we had a housekeeper, very briefly, she told us that she got caught up in this. Now, mind you, this was a 32-year-old single mom who had been abandoned by her husband, whom she married at 16 because she got pregnant. She now has at this point, she had 4 children at 32, single mom. And she said she got caught up too, and she lost money. And I was saying, like, no disrespect, but where did you find money to even invest? And she said she borrowed. She borrowed because she saw, and other people were telling her, like, this is so good. And I was like, why did you join? And she said, I got tired of seeing all the people around me counting their money. And so when I have conversations with some people here who are from the upper economic classes, and I tell them about what I do with BANTAYnet and how I really want to find ways to get my message out to people from working class or people who don't even make it into the working class. And when I tell them about what I'm doing, and they kind of look at me a bit confused and say, like, well, but Rahel, if they don't have money, how are they going to get scammed? What can they get scammed out of? And it makes me really sad to hear that people don't realize that even people with no money can get scammed very badly. They will sell their land, Krista. They will sell their cow or whatever they can. They will take up bad debt, with high interest, with loan sharks. They will do anything because, right, this is the chance of
this is the opportunity, right?
Lifetime.
Right. Yeah. I think this hits them harder because in the end they get into so much more trouble because they borrowed money to invest.
Exactly. And I've had people messaging me on BANTAYnet, and basically I do think they want me to say somehow that they're not scammed or that I can get their money back. But at this point, all I can do is confirm that, yes, you have indeed been scammed. And, they send me screenshots. I'm grateful that they share with me a lot of scams on WhatsApp. So if anyone in Malaysia or anywhere else in Asia, there are WhatsApp scams. They are rampant. They are in terms of loans. But again, I look at them and I'm in pain because I know just this tiny bit of digital literacy, and you would see red flags all over that screenshot, just from the username of the person, I don't know, Quick Bucks or like Easy Money 342, or,
They're really, really scammy names, right?
Yeah. And so, and they're like, promise, like, I wanted to take an 80,000 peso loan for a small business so I can get my family out of this. And they are somehow told to unlock the funds, paying 15,000, then another 15, and don't worry, you will get this. And the thing is, sometimes, Krista, I see that they try to do their due diligence. They do. They say, like, how do I know you're legit? But then the big mistake they make, and this is for anyone out there who's listening also, the big mistake they make is they take the scammer's word for it that they're legit. So the person then sent them, screenshots of like certifications and license for being brokers, or, diplomas of, and it's like, well, if you ask me, Rahel, are you really a doctor? I can be like, yeah, sure. And I can send you diplomas that I made on Canva about me being a doctor. You don't want surgery from me, trust me.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So, it's one of those things. I can make people aware about these scams, but then, to just do it in snippets on Facebook, on social media, without being able to go more in depth and make sure that this person is then going to also watch the whole series. Because, the way we consume information nowadays, right? And our media diet is very fragmented now. So I can, and also with the algorithm, because I'm not posting 5 times a day, my stuff doesn't get showed to many people. And I have 4,500 followers almost. But unless I play the meta game and jump through their hoops, which, by the way, I think is exploitation of content creators nowadays, because the way
you have to advertise, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To get your stuff seen, you have to advertise, basically.
you have to advertise or you have to play their game. Like literally, they've gamified content creation now, because on BANTAYnet, I always see like, here's your weekly challenge. And they frame it in a sense of to help you hone your skills as a content creator. And it's like, no, they just want us to keep creating more content so that they can sell adverts to more people. The content creators are working for free for Facebook. So if I want to be shown to lots of people, I literally have to do the whole 3 to 5 times a day, because posting consistently used to be once or twice a week, always on the same day. That's like when I started in 2020. I was shocked when I came back because I had to take a quick break from BANTAYnet. When I came back last September, so much had changed. And it's like, I'll post a reel and then I get the notification, yay, your reel got 10 views, create another. And I'm thinking, really? We're celebrating 10 views now? That's where we're at? You know?
I just perfectly understand. I mean, yeah, they're making us out to be their content creators, right? Not even our own content creators anymore.
No. Yeah, it really is. And then they're like, weekly challenges, post 3 reels, and then post 2 stories on Instagram, and this is for Facebook, post 2 stories on Instagram and public, use an ad, like pay for an ad, do this, 5 that, 6 that, 10 more followers. And I've seen content creators, like bloggers and stuff, like commenting and complaining about how hard it is and this and that. And this is so bad for mental health, Krista. If there's people really trying to make money by being content creators, this is going to drive you mad. I'm lucky that I'm in a position where I can be like, no, Facebook, I'm not going to play your game, because my content is my product. And if I'm about to turn out so much content that's lacking in quality, that's going to ruin my brand and also my mental health, my sanity, because I'm not posting just to post. And it's very hard for other content creators to not get sucked into that, right? Because if they want to be seen, they have to create.
You have to play their game, right? You're not doing it because you want to share something anymore. It's more like, I want to do it because I need to get 20 more followers or 100 more views of my reels.
Yeah, and it's diabolical if you think about it, because they're keeping everyone in this weird loop, right? Like on one hand, the content creators are just really sucked into it, and on the other hand, the reason they're doing that is so that the consumers keep scrolling and don't
going back to Facebook, right? Never leave Facebook.
And that is one of the challenges I've been facing. But so I realized that I need to change my strategy, and that's why I was really thankful when I was at DCN Global conference in Manila. I was able to talk to some Gen Z people, and Kira, she's amazing. She is a Gen Z, I believe she's Malaysian also, and she listened to what I do and she was on it. She was just like, you know what you want to do? You want to take your game offline. You do offline activities, train volunteers, do all of that, because that's the stuff that you can post then online, and your community to get to know that BANTAYnet exists. And you can get them involved, and you can tag people with their permission, and you can get the community involved. And the more people see themselves, if it's like a people-driven page as well, that's going to drive our followers. So one of the mistakes I might have made is going down the giveaway route. It made sense at the time, so I'm not going to beat myself up about it, but it's about, learning and moving forward. So my goal at the time was to grow to 10,000 followers as fast as I can, because that's when you take it seriously. And if I have 10,000 followers, I can ask for sponsorships, maybe partnerships, right? But the problem is, what that does is we now have a huge fan base where they're mostly there just for the giveaways. And to get people to do meaningful engagement is quite tricky. We do definitely have people who are following us for the content, but they might not necessarily be the people who share and engage and make our content go further. And I find that really frustrating, because I'm not a business. I'm doing all this for free, and I'm trying to actually help Meta keep people safe on their platform. And I feel like I shouldn't have to work so hard to do. That being said, I do think this is also quite an interesting observation for any women out there who are, trying to be seen more on social media. learn from me. The giveaway thing is good, but it's not maybe necessarily the kind of crowd you want to attract if you're trying to have meaningful engagement long term. And it's frustrating because it was all about like having as many follows and engagement back in the day. In 2020. It isn't even that long. But algorithms keep changing. They're very secretive about it. They don't tell us, what is the algorithm, but they'll tell you like, this is frowned upon. So now it is all about meaningful engagement. And I notice it. A lot of people share a post, even though I don't ask them to in a giveaway. But it's like, no one really sees shared stuff anymore because now they're all about new content. And that's a big switch. This is a big switch to like be aware about, because whereas sharing and all that used to indicate to them that, people care about your content, now it's just, that's lazy. And they'd rather have you creating your own content, because what does it mean if there's more original content? More content for Meta to show more people, and more people be watching the advertising that, advertisers pay for. So you really need to look at social media as a machinery. It's really not what it started out as being. It's all very profit-driven. Advertising is what actually is the bottom line. And clicks, engagement, that's the currency. So
and yeah. And in terms of BANTAYnet, you mentioned that you're doing a lot more offline engagement, yes, and which also comes back to you doing more talks, right? More awareness talks to your community.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why I feel like I've found where I need to be. Because to be honest, Krista, people are always like, don't you want to teach, be a teacher, do this? And I didn't actually see myself as a teacher until people were like, yeah, you're totally a teacher. But just because I'm not like in a traditional, classroom, the way I'm able to structure my topics and what I discuss and talk about is it's user-led. And that's what I really always wanted. I tailor my content, my talk to whatever the topic is, because there is no point of me making a load of content and talking about things that no one asked for. So what I have done, for example, in March, I was invited to do a talk for the local JCI movement here in Bohol, and they had an event at a mall for women empowerment because it was Women's Month in March. So I talked about women can stay safe on social media, but also how they can use it professionally, like with jobs that people here aren't aware of, like virtual assistants. But what's quite big here is like live stream selling. A lot of people do live stream selling or just online selling in general. I made them aware that there's other ways to get work, but also to be selling, maybe, have Shopify, have an actual online shop. So there is a lot of opportunity for women on the internet that people don't necessarily know about. Then more recently, I did a workshop. I was invited to do a workshop about how to spot fake news, which is very important because it's the election here in the Philippines. With my BANTAYnet approach, I don't teach about, fake news with the traditional ways people might teach about it, because traditionally most people will discuss fake news in terms of definitions. They start with defining disinformation and misinformation, and then a lot of it will be about fact checking. I don't dismiss those, but they're not the only thing. Like when people are just focused so much on, definitions, disinformation, misinformation, at the end of the day, the people here in the Philippines know the term fake news. And, whether they know the definition, is this disinformation or misinformation, it's kind of here nor there if they're like on, scrolling and they're confronted with it. Like knowing which one it is makes no difference. So I focus more on what can they do to, like, first of all, just be critical to begin with. Because people just believe everything on Facebook here. So a lot of it is just about, asking questions, who posted. So I go way beyond that, because also fact checking is not very helpful if you are on a very local level. You're not going to find anything on Google. Also, a lot of people, unfortunately, don't really know how to use Google. And fact checking is a very high level skill, You need
because
to
you also have to know what questions to ask.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that I can bring my approaches to my workshop, and I'm starting to be able to go out into the communities and discuss these other approaches. And I discuss things like, knowing how your brain works, the psychology of it, how brains don't like gaps. They don't like lacking information. So we just fill it with whatever information we have and jump to conclusions. And that helps fake news spread. Filipinos really like gossip, well, who doesn't? But Filipinos live for gossip. Chisme or marites, as they call it. So this kind of thinking is not helpful.
True. Yeah. And also people like to just look at headlines and they don't read the rest of the news and they make their assumptions about the news report. Right?
Yes,
and they go and spread that out to other people without reading the entire news article.
Exactly. And this is the kind of stuff, Krista, I think this is the kind of knowledge people can apply right away. They don't even have to go to another site to find anything. I try to make it engaging and fun to show people also, like, don't feel bad if you catch yourself doing that. That's naturally how our brains function. But it's all about like being like, no, not today. Not today. I'm going to put a stop to this cycle. So I do talk a lot about scams, fake news. And yesterday, I actually had the privilege of being the keynote speaker at an award for youth leaders, Excellence Award for youth leaders. And I was a bit nervous because it was at a mall. I don't know if the rest of Asia is like this, but Philippines, malls really are just the hub of where things happen. So yeah, there's a stage and everything. So I was a bit apprehensive about showing up, with like my PowerPoint presentation, with my slides and kind of doing a lecture type thing for these awardees as a keynote. But I was given the title, and it was about posting meaningfully and posting smartly on Facebook or on social media so that you don't accidentally ruin your future with a post that can be dug up later and be used against you. And
that's actually a good point for leadership,
right?
Yeah.
I was really,
and you don't want your past to come back and haunt you or bite you in the butt, right?
Exactly. Like something you did as a teenager and it was like a long time ago and it was just for fun. So yeah, I brought up things like, that I just want to be common knowledge. I want these things to be common knowledge for everyone. So I don't even have to teach these things one day because everyone just knows these things. Like, ask for permission before you post or tag someone. Also make sure that you need to be asked for permission to allow someone to tag you. Take control of your social media, but don't post stuff that's going to get someone in trouble. Just netiquette. If someone is being bashed in the news, don't pile on to that. It's not kind. Don't comment on people's looks because these things age very badly. Even if you think it's a compliment, you might be complimenting or commenting on a mental health issue, an eating disorder, an illness. So just don't. In the Philippines, things are very looks based, and I feel like a lot of the time we take away from people's message. This person might be talking about like this amazing movement that they have done for the environment or something, and everyone's just like commenting like, why do you look that way? You look haggard. What did you do to your face? Blah blah. And it's like, that's not common.
Is it common in the Philippines?
Yes, it's so bad.
Okay.
So bad. And the thing is, I can't even say, if you wouldn't say it to their face, don't say it online, because they would say it to your face. Body shaming is really bad here. And I do see this come up a lot on like toxic Filipino behavior. Also toxic Filipino traits or something. There's a thread for that comes up a lot on Facebook. I see it. And it's the younger generation starting to say like, no, this is not okay. No, they fat shame teenagers so much. Me, my sister, we went through a lot of it, as teens, young women. They'll point out a blemish on your face when you're like really, what happened to your face? It's like, it's so looks based. It's not being helped with the social media filters, AI filters. People don't use them ironically. They don't use an AI face kind of merge and use it for fun and then just say like, I'm just trying things out, guys. And people compliment them and say, oh, you look so beautiful. And they don't go like, I was just trying something. They say thanks. And I think there's so many things wrong with that, because not only are you lying to yourself, you're lying to other people. And there's enough documented research and cases of people who have started trying to get surgery to look like their avatars or their filtered version. But I do want to make clear, Krista, I'm not judging any of the women or men who feel the need to use filters all the time, or, just AI, whatever. Because it's our society that's making people feel like the way they look, they're not enough, right? Because people come at them. The internet is cruel everywhere. It's not just the Philippines.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm just trying to tell people, that just make them aware and tell them like this is not okay. Because a lot of people don't even realize that they're accidentally being cyberbullies or trolls. It's a process. I'm not going to do any of this overnight, but any exposure that I get to talk about these things are helpful. So the talk yesterday at the award ceremony for the youth leaders actually did go very well. I had feedback from parents and teachers saying that they find this very useful. They actually would like me to create posts from my presentation slides that they can share. So some of the schools were interested to bring me down for talks to either teachers or students. So it's all starting to pay off, and it's an exciting time. It's a lot of work to do. But as you can see with BANTAYnet, I do take a holistic approach. There's organizations here in the Philippines, but they tackle individual advocacies, which I do think is important. So there's people doing, fake news, there's people doing MIL, there's, all that, and there's anti-scam. But I don't know, am I being ridiculous and too ambitious in trying to see, trying to get everything under one umbrella, under one hat? I don't think I am. That's just how I function. I feel like the issues in the internet, it's a lot like the human body, right? If you're going to study medicine, yes, there are specialists, but you also need GPs. You need general practitioners, because it's all connected and interrelated. So I feel like teaching media information literacy, MIL, goes a long way towards not getting scammed or staying safe online, not accidentally trying to apply for a job and ending up in the sex trade. Knowing MIL gets you less likely to fall for fake news. So much of it is overreaching and overlapping that I feel like I'm just the interpreter of all of these.
So you're finally finding your interpreter role, finally, after all these years. But I do need to ask this, Rahel. I mean, you're a nonprofit right now. How do you sustain it? And that is, I think, is important also, even as you're doing your work, because this is tough work, Rahel.
That's a very good question. I felt like severe imposter syndrome when you asked me to come in on the podcast of Womenpreneur Asia, because I don't feel like I have actually successfully achieved the entrepreneurial side of things. Because I'll be honest, because I started as a charity, obviously I know charities also need money, but the concept at the time was, I'll start with a crowdfunder, which I did. I did a crowdfunder. We raised about £2,500, and that got me to launch and get BANTAYnet off the ground. It paid for, paid subscription for Canva Pro, all those things. It lasted a long time, but yes, it did run out. My plan at the time was to keep doing fundraisers, crowdfunding donations. I didn't do those things for the following reasons. One of them being, after having done the crowdfunder, I realized I don't like it. I see now why, big charities have entire departments to do fundraising, because it's a lot of work, and it's work that takes away from the main advocacy or mission. I found that quite difficult because, yes, I can do that for a short period of time, but eventually I want to get back to what BANTAYnet is supposed to be doing. And, fundraising is a full-time job. Also, I didn't really like the feeling of just begging people for money all the time, even though I know it's a good cause. Long term, I just didn't see this working out. And that is actually, Krista, where I was stuck for the last, for about 1.5 to 2 years. When I moved to the Philippines, I really thought that if I come here, it'll be easier, right? I can go to schools, I can talk to people, everything be easy. I had a roadmap, I had a blueprint when I started BANTAYnet. I knew exactly what to do, even though I'd never done this before. I knew I needed to do branding, I need to get a board, I need to have a website. I did all those things, I taught myself. But when I came here, it was lost. I didn't know what to do. And I was beating myself up about it because I put BANTAYnet on the back burner for 1.5 years. And I felt really guilty because first of all, if I'm not doing that, what am I doing? And also, I kind of felt guilty because I know there's so much work to be done and I'm not doing it. I'm not helping people. But that's what my husband told me, you can make this for profit. And because I really struggle with this, because I don't want to gatekeep, this information. I made this so that people who can't afford it can get access to this information. And my husband said that, yeah, but every charity needs to kind of sustain itself. And that's how the whole social enterprise kind of came up, why don't we make online courses and kind of monetize some of my services to those people, to those organizations and people who can afford it so that I can keep doing the charitable work. And that's how I kind of started coming around to, yeah, that's okay. To answer your question, how do I finance all of this? At the moment, I am very lucky that my husband really believes in what I'm doing and he's bankrolling this. That being said, I don't have many expenses because this is a home office. I work from home. As I said, I do live with my parents, so my contributions to the household are minimal. So we are looking at all these ways to keep the costs down. And the payment for interns and all that, we just see that as an investment into our business. I think the biggest price points are, software, our interns, and giveaways, paid advertising. But it's all it's all part of a list so that once we do get profitable, we can start repaying the capital as well.
When you're talking, I just had an idea. Wouldn't it be interesting for you to work with companies or businesses that want to help you with the giveaways, but it's not in a direct cash form, but it could be just their products or something that would allow the people in your community to really come forward to engage with BANTAYnet, at the same time win something that is from a Filipino company. I'm just thinking out loud.
No, this is a very good idea. And I have thought of this. I think I'm still struggling a bit with confidence. And this is the story of my life. If you've seen how I've dipped my toes in so many areas, I'm always like a newcomer, right? I'm always starting new. And it takes me a minute to find my feet in this new area. I think my lack of confidence here stems from the fact that we're still in the process of being registered as a non-stock nonprofit, as they call it here, as an NGO. I do have lawyers working on this right now at the moment. And I feel just because I lack that legitimacy, I just feel like I'm not in a strong enough position to approach people yet. So I feel like this is something that's holding me back from actually approaching, bigger businesses, which I will be doing. But also my plan for actually generating income is getting, paid gigs at schools, especially private schools that I can actually charge for. And I can charge more for custom or tailoring it just for this specific talk. That is a service that I don't think anyone else is providing. I want to do webinars as well, so I can reach people outside the Philippines as well. So if there is any issue you have for your organization or a school or, parents that are concerned about what to do with their kids, screen time, any of that, I can do webinars as well. Something I want to start. And also doing workshops at companies, like corporations, for just staff training, I
think that's the brilliant one, because I think it's not just communities that need it. I'm sure corporates with their teams and their employees, they need that too.
And I think a lot of people don't know just basic kind of best practices of, don't take selfies at your workplace with confidential stuff on your screen behind you or passwords on Post-its, so there's
or don't take pictures of your passport. I've seen people doing this all the time. When they travel, they take pictures of their passports or take pictures of their air tickets or things like that, which is so compromising.
Yes. Or when they find an ID or a passport of someone and they post it on a Facebook group, like, hey, I found this. And I'm just like, no, black out the important parts. But yeah, there's definitely a big space, but I also have learned from my past where I will dive into something too fast, where I'm not actually ready yet. So that's why I haven't actually started advertising my services in full yet, because I also still need to give myself time to practice and to hone my craft, right? So doing these talks in communities, really, it's like I'm a comedian doing the different gigs in different places, I'm trying my material first. What works, what doesn't, what can I do better? I know once I do advertise, people will be interested, because even now people are like, we had no idea, you just live here in Bohol, so we do need your services very much. So I'm not worried about that, but I do want to have this happen organically, also to give me time to grow with my business, because I'm the business essentially, right? I wear all the hats. I'm also the product. In this last few talks that I've had, I will be up till 4 or 5 in the morning just finishing those slides, because they're not up to my quality, they're not up to steps. But I also do want to address anyone out there who is giving them a hard time about, being a certain age and not having reached XYZ milestone yet. I used to give myself a really hard time about that, especially, starting my degree from scratch again, or like, now I'm 24 and I'm like in first year university again, oh my gosh, like it was endless. And yeah, I'm 40 now. I still haven't figured all of it out, but this is something I will say. I spent a lot of time, and I'm so grateful also. I know I come from a place of privilege. I actually had the chance to try what works, what doesn't, fail horribly, and be okay, financially. I get that that's a place of privilege. But even if not, I will say we all have different trajectories. I had people saying this to me before, and I didn't really let that in. I would always somehow feel like, yeah, but I'm different. For some reason, we think we're different. But I am really grateful that I have a husband who is very supportive, like this whole time. Like I would be the one saying, oh, I'm not contributing, and oh my goodness. And he would be like, hey, no, you're an investment. It's going to pay off. So that is helpful. But also, if I hadn't taken all this twists and turns and downfalls and serious timeouts, there were months where I didn't know it was actually my mental health telling me in a physical way that I was on the wrong track. I spent up to 3 months with extreme fatigue, going from doctor to doctor, not knowing what it was. I was misdiagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and I just felt like, am I crazy? Especially women don't always get believed a lot when they talk to mental health professionals. And I was just always at the doctors for something. Now it's this, now it's that. And I was just like, well, have I just become that person? Just to find out a few years later that, it was all mental health related. I had high functioning anxiety until I didn't function. And it was mind blowing to me when my therapist, my psychologist actually said to me, Rahel, this is actually all very textbook, the way it's manifesting for you in your physical body. Did you know that? And I said, no, I did not know that. And I just want to, give this as a message out there to anyone who might be having similar problems, because my symptoms ranged from locked jaw, which is an anxiety thing, from clenching. I couldn't open my mouth for a while, and eating anything other than soup was difficult. It does relax back, but I do still have like a click, but it does relax back. But brain fog, when I would tell the doctor, it just feels like I'm not getting enough like oxygen in my head. And like, it's just like I'm thinking and it's very foggy. No one was talking about brain fog back then. My neck and shoulder would get so tight from all the tensing. And yeah, I wasn't in that sense getting enough to my brain. And so if you're feeling that, if you're having mental health issues, I also do refer to my mental health sometimes as like keeping me on my North Star, keeping me in true mission. Because I feel sometimes it would have been stronger of me to just accept that I was on the wrong path and reassess. I think I was too weak at the time to be brave and, take the wheel and do a U-turn, because I've been on this path and I have to keep going. So I speak to a lot of people who then see what I do, and then a lot of times I do hear regret from someone, from people who just aren't necessarily happy with where they are, but they feel like they don't have a choice, they're trapped, they have a commitment, and people rely on them, and I get that. But at the same time, I also feel if you don't want to live a life of regret and what ifs, and if you can find a way to take that wheel and do a U-turn and just go somewhere else, if you don't like where it's going, find ways to be ready to do that. Because even if it gets worse before it gets better, I found that I went down some wrong train tracks for a while, but now that I've found the right one, I can go full speed ahead. And I'm only at the beginning, and it's very exciting, all the prospects. So if you need time to find the right track, take it, don't feel bad. You'll find the right one.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And it makes perfect sense because I think you have come to terms with what you're doing right now. And I think you're probably in a place where you're so much happier compared to those years when you were struggling to figure out if you're made for law, if you're made for living in Zurich or wherever, right? Wherever that you're supposed to be living in. And finally you found, you've come a long way to basically come home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that being said, I am actually scared at how calm I am about all of this because I haven't figured anything out. I mean, things are far from perfect, My living arrangements aren't necessarily the way I would want them to be. My husband is still sort of back and forth. That's a huge stressor as well. And I don't know yet financially, how I'm going to make this business work. But I know I'm in the right place because I can look at all that, all the uncertainty, all the things, the challenges, and I'm not worried because I'll figure it out. That's why I know I found my calling and I'm in the right place, because these things are stresses that I'm willing to take on board. I'm okay if I'm going to be stressed about that because I feel like it's worth my while. I'm not stressing about something nobody will care about in 5 years, and I'm also not stressing about something that, is making someone else profit because, I'm working for someone else. Because I'm not.
Okay, so Rahel, where can people find you online?
Yes. So in terms of where my work, BANTAYnet, is most active and updates on what my latest talk or events, it's the Facebook page. It's literally just at BANTAYnet. I'm on LinkedIn as there's a BANTAYnet page, but I'm also personally there, Rahel Podobsky-Stucki. And I do have a website, but it is bantaynet.org. And that's where we will have the integrated e-learning platform eventually, and hopefully merchandise at some point too.
Okay, great. So that's BANTAYNET, right? BANTAYnet. Yes. Okay. So thanks, Rahel, for such an interesting look at how you came to start BANTAYnet, how you eventually found what you were looking for, despite the non-linear path that brought you all over the place and country to country, place to place, city to city, and finally you're back. You're in Bohol. You're in Bohol, Central Visa. I had to look at the map to see where it is because I know Philippines is so full of islands. And yeah, I found it. It's right smack dab in the center. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it's about 700 kilometers south of Manila.
Something like that. That sounds...
Yeah. It's quite far away.
Next time, if you're visiting, please come to Bohol. We have lovely beaches and great nature. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Krista.
What powerful insights do you gain from Rahel's remarkable journey today? Rahel's journey has, in a way, come full circle. Throughout the many twists and turns from Davos to Bohol, Rahel finally found her true calling, helping people through BANTAYnet. Her story shows us that our paths don't need to be linear to be purposeful, and we can sometimes go down many winding paths before we find what we're meant to do. What struck me most was her openness about her challenges and how they ultimately guided her towards her true calling. Through BANTAYnet, Rahel is transforming digital literacy education in the Philippines, making essential knowledge accessible to those who need it the most. Her story reminds us that sometimes the most impactful work comes from combining our diverse experiences, cultural perspectives, and personal challenges into something bigger than ourselves. By being vulnerable about her own journey, she's empowering others to navigate the digital world safely and confidently. So here's my question for you. How might embracing your own unique journey with all its twists and turns lead you to make a difference in your community? If you're new to Womenpreneur Asia, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss more inspiring stories like Rahel's. And for our loyal listeners, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast on your preferred podcast app. Your support helps us reach more inspiring entrepreneurs across Asia. This is Krista signing off. I'll see you next week for another brand new episode of Womenpreneur Asia.